tonight. We're a number of different things that we're going to do before we get started. But the first is I want to introduce my Associate Dean, Janelle Pitt-Parker. She is a person who worked closely with me on a lot of these different things. And I will have to say that the whole inspiration for how and when we were going to start redirecting our development initiatives was something that was born out of really paying a close attention to where and how Kremen had been living up to its creed. So Janelle, if you want to just introduce yourself for a minute before we get started, that'd be helpful.
Thank you, Randy. Hi, everyone. My name is Janelle Pitt-Parker, and I'm currently serving as Associate Dean in the Kremen School of Education and Human Development. And so glad that you can join us today to learn more about this wonderful initiative. So thank you so much for your presence and time in being here.
Thank you very much, Janelle. I want to also give a shout out to Heather McDowell, who is heading up development here in Kremen, our development initiatives that she works with Katie out of the development office. She's been very instrumental in setting all this up. So a shout out to Heather, well done. And also to Jason Smithberg, who is our communication specialist and has also done some yeoman's work to make sure that all these Day of Giving things are going well. And Audra Burwell, our student assistant. I have to give credit to all of those people who have contributed greatly to this event. And last thank you is Dr. Rohit Mehta. You're going to actually meet him a little bit later, but he is responsible for the artwork that you saw both on our website and that was flashing just a moment in front of you. He's an excellent artist, poet, and a number of other things that he does in addition to his engineering degree. Vastly talented, but you'll get to meet him in a moment. Because of the nature of this Day of Giving and the event that we're celebrating, I'd like to start with our land acknowledgement, particularly in this venue, because we're trying to celebrate lots of ways in which we look different, act different, speak different, and honor the traditions and experiences of others. So I will let you listen to our land acknowledgement, which we like to make sure that we share and understand that Fresno State is not the first and only institution that sits in this land, because Fresno State is a campus that sits in the midst of the San Joaquin Valley, which is a valley that's rich in traditions and representation of Native American peoples and cultures. And we are grateful in this moment to be in traditional homelands of the Okets and the Manos people, whose diverse tribal communities share stewardship over this land. We have Mano and Yokut students who attend our university, and I think the last count was above 300. So it's not a historical representation. This is a current representation, and we are glad to share this land with them. So that is our land acknowledgement. I will describe the initiative and then introduce you to the people. And tonight, you're going to hear from the people themselves who are funded through this initiative that we are going to continue. I will tell you that the Diversity and Equity Fellows and also the Diversity and Equity Scholars are specifically selected. We have a nomination and a review panel that look at all of the applicants for this particular initiative. And it was one that was born out of trying to make sure that in each and every stage of our program, we're making sure that we honor equity and social justice efforts. So as a part of what we do within our program, as a part of what we do as a part of our reciprocation to our partners that we work with in each of our programs, at each level, we wanted to make sure that we were both aware of what we were attending to and living up to our creed in being responsive to our community and addressing in our community issues of social justice. We know that there have been race-motivated hatred that has plagued us long before George Floyd, but there was an awakening and awareness that was brought on by the murder of George Floyd. And we're making sure that in what we do in our school doesn't ignore our history, and that also doesn't turn the other way when we see injustice. So what we're intentionally doing is putting within our programs opportunities for students from their own backgrounds and from their own perspective to address social justice issues within our program and within our community as they work through their studies. And we also have an appointed, there was an application process and a review process, but we have selected one equity fellow, which is a faculty member who serves in the role of directing a social justice initiative of their own. They're given a budget, they're given release time, and they are supported to bring about the kinds of change that they believe are required over the 12 months that they hold that position. That position will be rotated in the future throughout Kremen, and has independent of discipline. It is independent of the status of tenure versus tenure track. These are open nominations. Will be each and every year that we're going to support at least one faculty member as an equity fellow, in addition to an equity scholar at each of the levels. So let me stop with the introduction and turn it over to our equity fellow for this year. This is Dr. Rohit Mehta.
Hello all. Thank you, Dr. Randy Garrick, for the introductions and land acknowledgement. Welcome everybody to this Day of Giving event regarding our equity and social justice scholars. I am Dr. Rohit Mehta. I'm an assistant professor in curriculum and instruction at Kremen School, and this year's equity and social justice faculty fellow, whatever you want to call it. As a part of the work for this fellowship, I am developing a new center for creative community engagement, where different stakeholders within our local schools and community, like our high school students and university students, teachers in service, pre-service, will apply design thinking to creatively tackle issues of inequity within our lived experiences. So trying to do something grassroots level where we can tackle some facets of inequities as we speak on larger levels within our scope and capacity in our day-to-day experiences. But enough about me. I am excited, and I'm sure you are, to meet our student fellows for equity and social justice in Kremen this year. I'm joined by our 4 Kremen students who are this year's scholars. What I'm going to do is, I have mostly 3 big questions to ask them. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, then ask them about what this fellowship or this award means to them, and finally ask a little bit about what they plan to do with it, or how they're imagining the future with this. We're going to do this in 3 rounds, right? So I'm also speaking to our Kremen students. I'll ask the first question, let everybody go, and then move on to the second question and do a round robin fashion that way. Sound good? All right. Happy to see everybody again. Priscilla, Zoe, Rahul, and Brandon. Just really wonderful to have you again in this digital space this time. Let's start with introductions, right? So let's start with Brandon. Could you share a little bit about your personal and professional background with us?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. And thank you for having me. So my name is Brandon Gridiron. I am currently in the doctoral program in educational leadership at Fresno State, obviously, and I'm in my last year, hopefully, and my dissertation will go well. And I currently serve as the administrator of equity and student services for Visalia Unified School District. I've served in this role for the last, I think this is my 5th year. I used to be a site principal, site administrator for several years prior to that. Also served as a school counselor, and I started my career in education. I actually was in a presentation earlier today, and they asked that question. It goes all the way back to being a preschool teacher, a head preschool teacher. I always often forget about that. But you know, as a educator, my passion around the work for social justice and equity work came through my own experiences as a young boy in high school and in elementary school, and really wanting to understand more so for me, the experiences of all of our students, and what makes a more culturally engaging campus environment for them, both being culturally responsive and culturally relevant. And so, you know, my work as an administrator of equity and student services is really around that. How do we create experiences, environments, and relationships for our kids, that really allow them to feel a sense of belonging in their space and achieve well. So that's a little bit about me and what I do.
Thank you, Brandon, and thank you for getting us started. Let's move to our master student fellow, Raul Gonzalez.
Okay, well, my name is Raul Gonzalez, and I am el hijo de María y Ezequiel Gonzalez, the son of María and Ezequiel Gonzalez. We came to this country in 1974 as undocumented immigrants. I was an undocumented immigrant until I was a senior in high school. And I went through all those experiences of being undocumented, the fear of any kind of uniform. I was afraid to go into the post office because that was a government institution, which we were all afraid of. We lived out in the country. This was my experiences. This was my lived experiences. As I grew up, I vowed that if I ever was able to get beyond that, then I would, dedicate my life to service, of helping reach down to bring those people that were also in that same lived experience, bring those people up. That's kind of what my goal and my life's work has been. It's all about equity, diversity, and inclusion. It's always about bringing all the lived experiences forward and making sure that everybody's suffering is heard. That's kind of a little bit about me. I'm also actually a transitional kindergarten teacher. And so I get them early. I start early.
Thank you, Raul. What a wonderful transition into our next candidate, who's our credential student fellow, Zoe Miller.
Hi. I think I don't know. I was an FUSD student my whole life, kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. And that definitely influenced me. And I am, like you mentioned, in the credential program, currently teaching, beginning to teach. But I did just leave the classroom, so I'm going to count that. Right now I'm teaching a 4th and 5th grade special ed, special day class in STC. That's what they call it. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the whole special ed spectrum, but yeah, I've always loved Fresno and always, wanted to come back. And I also really love teaching. So that kind of led me to FUSD. But similarly to other people, I haven't always had great experiences in FUSD. I actually, when I was writing this application, was sort of reflecting on, my own experiences and stuff. And I could think of more negative than positive, especially when it came to, and in my personal case, sort of issues of gender and sexuality. And then obviously also as a white person coming from a very specific place of privilege and still having a lot of very negative and harming experiences. And then also witnessing, obviously, many of my friends and peers going through even harder things. And so I think as a teacher, I've kind of come to believe that that's one of the best ways that I can make a difference. And every day that I do teach, I'm like, okay, I helped a kid today. Like I can point out, even when everything went terrible, I was like, that kid had a better day because of something that I did. And so that's, it brings me peace. And also my sort of long-term goal, both with this grant and also just, with my life, is to bring social justice into my daily teaching practice. Yeah.
Thank you, Zoe. Our next and fourth scholar is our undergraduate student, Priscilla Vasquez.
Hello. So I am originally from Fresno, California. I grew up going to Fresno Unified and Central Unified as well. And my family ended up moving to Madera, California when I was in high school. And during my high school breaks, we needed to get volunteer hours, not only to graduate, but I wanted to do something in my spare time with my 2 younger sisters who were also in high school during this time. And my mom had gotten us involved with Fresno Parks and Recreation as volunteers. And the original idea was to volunteer for a summer and get our hours done. And little did I know that would turn into volunteering for 6 to 8 more years with Fresno Parks and Recreation. And overall, I can say that it was really fun to work at different centers. I started at Ted C. Wills. I worked at Holmes Playground, Inspiration Park. And I think this is really where I found my passion in reaching out to the youth. And I really loved engaging with new kids. I looked forward to meeting the kids that look forward to going to the recreation centers every day after school. And I loved helping direct their focus to positive alternatives. So whether that is working on homework problems that they couldn't solve in class or going over something they didn't specifically get in class, learning a new sport, trying a new sport, playing educational games on the computer. It's just an experience in my life, as I'm also a first-generation college student. And I love putting myself in the situations where I can be that role model to those kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. And thank you all for the introductions. For the remainder of the time, I'm just going to combine the next two questions because I'm hearing your answers, and I think the next two questions are kind of very similar and related to each other. So let's start in the, sorry if you hear background noise, kids yelling. So let's start in reverse order with Priscilla this time. Priscilla, tell us, what does this award mean to you, and what do you look forward to doing with it?
Okay, so when I saw this opportunity available about equity-driven outreach, I realized that I could really relate to this topic growing up in my personal experiences. And I thought to myself, what could I do while pursuing higher education? And I knew that I was excited from the start. I knew I wanted to keep my focus with Fresno Parks and Recreation, as I have been doing. And more specifically, I wanted to focus on Latino youth. And I wanted to keep the traditions that they have available at the rec centers. So they usually have a fun Friday, and you can incorporate different ideas that the kids want to do. And I wanted to offer a cooking class where they can have healthy options to traditional Hispanic foods and learn about just healthier options overall in general, and without taking away from anything that you grew up with. And I've always looked forward to going to college. So this is a really full circle moment for me, because growing up, hearing my mom and my dad and my grandma and everyone in my family really tell me how important college is, and the opportunities that higher education can point you to, has really pushed me and my siblings to seeing the importance and value of education. And like I said before, I just want to be that role model for that kid to see themselves in education, that education is for them. And I'm really grateful for this scholarship, because it just gives me that leadership role in outreach efforts. And I'm excited to have this journey with you guys. So thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla, for all the work that you do. Let's move to Zoe Miller. Same question, Zoe. What does this fellowship mean to you, and what do you intend to do with it?
I think in terms of what it means to me, I've been a working student since I was about 15. My parents own a family business, and I've worked outside of that as well for a long time. And ever since basically I was in high school, I've had a job and, tried to support myself and whatever. And so this is the first time being in the credential program that I haven't been able to do that, because it's a pretty full-time thing. And I've gotten, a couple of other like Cal grants and stuff. It's not the most expensive college that I've ever put myself through, but it is the first time where I am, working without pay, essentially. So first of all, and, not to undervalue the other things, but most importantly to me, this is like very much helps me like pay for gas and just maintain my life and the ability to even stay in the credential program. And that's super important to me. And then in terms of, other specifically equity-based stuff, I've been really interested in sort of student self-perception within special ed. Also, again, specifically at the elementary school level. Because right now, as a fourth and fifth grade teacher, my kids are like 9 to 11. I think our oldest kid is about to turn 12, and they're probably at least half of them. One of our main issues is that they just have no self-efficacy, because even if once you start in an SDC, by the time they're 9, they've already felt like, I can't do this. I'm not good at anything. I'm just not good at math. I'm not good at reading and stuff. So I'm interested in that, and sort of surveying how that differentiates with gender as well, because I have seen that, kind of throughout the gender spectrum, there's different types of coping mechanisms for that, whether that's like being really sweet, and is that something that kind of gets you through, and like smiling and stuff like that, or being like really funny, stuff like that. So there's, I don't know, kids have all these different coping mechanisms, and I'm really interested in that, and sort of seeing how we can build up that self-efficacy in addition to like actually getting through the curriculum, because you can't really get there without doing that social emotional learning and, cultural competence supports and stuff. And also kind of in addition to that, and in conjunction with that, one of my kind of personal passions is STEM teaching as well. My bachelor's degree was not in education at all. It was in society and environment, which is kind of specifically how equity issues and social justice movements interact with the climate crisis. So STEM has always kind of been a focus for me. I thought that's what I was going to go into until I started tutoring and, whatever. But a lot of kids, especially in special ed, don't get access to a lot of that stuff because the focus is so on reading and so on math, and those things are really valuable, but then they miss out on things like social studies and also science. I talked to a fourth grader this summer who had, I asked her what the word science meant and she didn't know. And I was explaining it to her and she's like, yeah, I've never, do you mean potions? She asked me if I meant potions and I was like, okay, I mean, sort of. So that's another thing that I'm really passionate about, and sort of getting into that deeper lesson planning and how we can connect that with those other, Common Core standards, so we can hopefully combine them and they don't miss out on the reading, but they also.
Hey, thank you for sharing that, Zoe, the details of what that looks like in your practice. I really appreciate that. Raul, same question to you. What does this award mean to you and what do you intend to do with it?
First of all, can you guys hear me okay? Because I got something, there's like a storm coming in, I think, and I keep getting this low system resources, so I'm good. What it means to me is, and after so many units and so many good grades that I've managed to do for myself, I really take, my dad always told me education was the great equalizer. As he would take me out to the fields, he would tell me, you can come out here and work with me, or you can go get an education. And that was kind of my two alternatives, my two options I had. So getting this for me really, really validates who I am and the vision of my father. It really means that much, because it validates that this was the great equalizer, getting an education. But for me personally, it's really, I don't know if the word mitigates the trauma that I went through, that of all these people saying you're not good enough, you're an illegal alien and all this other stuff, and finally trying to take that imposter syndrome off of my shoulders and really having a university, a prestigious university, validate who I think I am and the work that I think is good work. So that for me is what it means to me. In terms of what I'll do with it, anybody and anyone who will listen, I will talk to. I think that I have a very, my work is really looking at teachers and their attitudes and beliefs about the things that some other folks have mentioned: trauma-informed practices, the culturally responsive teaching, the equity-driven approach, the whole child approach, and really looking at how are teachers not only getting trained in those areas of professional development, but how are they receiving it? And how does that impact a student like Raul Gonzalez, who was in first grade, second grade, who was an undocumented immigrant, who didn't see anywhere beyond working in the field? How do we really meet those kids where they are and understand that experience? So for me, it's been very important. I do a lot of work with the union. I have so for many years now. So it's really nice when I have the ear of the president of the California Teachers Association, not only taking my survey that I put out, but also listening to, hey, let me know what happens with this and what are the results, because I want to know. I got 100 teachers to respond to this, and what are they saying? Because I need to know what they're saying. We need to know which direction we go. So that's for me. It's if I can have some hand in driving how we address our teachers and those needs, that's beautiful. That's I'll be validated in my work.
Thank you so much for sharing your passion with us, Raul. And finally, Brandon Gridiron.
Yeah, well, outside of obviously helping me pay for the last bit of my tuition here, that's really, it goes into something that Raul mentioned a minute ago, and it's something that I learned later in my life of this thing called imposter syndrome. And this is that validation, in some instance, or affirmation that I am worthy, I'm good enough, right? Like I'm capable. As a young Black boy on the west side of Fresno, raised by a teen mother in special education, right? All of these things that go against what it means to be intellectual, that didn't fit. And so for me, all the way up until this point, even yesterday, the day before that, right, I still don't think that like I'm smart enough, I can write well, I know what I'm talking about, I am educated, all of these different things. And it's like, wow, like, man, that the years of that trauma and the culture and the environment that was in, and all of the things that people say or the narratives around the media or whatever the case may be, it impacts me. And I watch it in my own children. As much as I can tell my daughter how beautiful she is, how smart she is, how great she is, the world is telling her something else, right? And so how do I contend with that notion that it doesn't matter what I say to her, or, well, it does matter, but that impact is still, there's still an impact out there that's being had on her, right? And how do I combat that? And so, you know, the scholarship is just that affirmation that, Brandon, you know what you're talking about. You can do this work, right? And so I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking the time to read what I wrote. I appreciate Dr. Yee believing in me and encouraging me to go this route, because sometimes that's what you need. It's just someone else to see something in you that you don't see in yourself. And so in turn, what I intend to do with this is to highlight and uplift voice of those who have experiences that may not have been shared. I always consider my dissertation, and I'm having a tough time writing it because it's like so emotional. It's like a love letter to myself, right? It's like, what was your experience as a young Black boy in school? And it's through these experiences of the Black kids that I intend to interview that will tell me what that was. That will finally, it's almost as if I'm looking in the mirror and then someone's asking me that question. Brandon, what is this environment like for you? How do you feel? Do you feel connected? Do you feel like you belong? Do you feel good enough? Do you feel smart enough, right? And then being able to share that with the world. Because as I think about this work of equity, I often think of voice. There's nothing more powerful than voice and giving people space to share their voice and have a voice and uplift voice. And so, you know, the acronym that I use for voice is often valuing our individual commitments to equity, because it is through the uplifting and encouraging and empowering and using our voice that we actually will achieve equity. And it's the only way we've ever done it. And so that's what I hope to continue to be able to do with this work. And I'm super excited about, you know, the culmination of it all. And yeah, thank you guys all.
Thank you, Brandon, for sharing that heartfelt and passionate. And all four of our students, the passion is tangible, right? And
I got a question, Brandon, though. Did you patent that voice thing yet?
No, I haven't patented it. I share it with everybody too, and they're like, "Oh, this is awesome. We're gonna use it." And it's like, "Go ahead, I don't care."
Or a
Right?
T-shirt or something. If you want to go into business, we can go into business.
It's being recorded right now, so
right, it's been documented. All right, thank you all for being here. I'm going to pass it back to Heather McDowell to wrap it up. But again, I resonate with all the passion that you've shared here today. I got close to crying, so again, that's one more thing that I avoided today. Finally, a shout out to Dr. Yee. I resonate with that, Brandon, because she was also the person who encouraged me to apply to this. So what? All right, back to you, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are also inspiring. Thank you for, it's just been wonderful to get to meet you in person. And thank you to our generous donors, large and small, who make the programs like this possible. I'll be sending the recording of this event to a number of them who weren't able to attend tonight, and they will love to meet you all. So to support the Student Equity Scholars, visit the link in the chat or scan the QR code. We have tonight and another full day tomorrow to participate in Day of Giving. So encourage your network and participate by a social media challenge. Kremen will be posting more of those on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter tonight and tomorrow. Thank you so much, all of you.